prosecutor of the state. As soon as he arrives, we're going to get started with the event. Testing, 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 English channel, testing. We are expecting the General Public Prosecutor of Paraguay, and we're going to get started very soon. to move forward in security measures for judges and public prosecutors in Paraguay who are facing organized crime. Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria Victoria Rivas. Security in our hemisphere is multidimensional and essential for the consolidation of peace, development, and social justice. Member states of the OAS have established how they condemned transnational crime and have highlighted the need to increase institutional strengthening for this. The severity of the situation and the urgency to implement effective measures. Judges and public prosecutors are key pieces in maintaining the law in our societies. The constant threat they face because of their work in case of organized crime requires a robust response to guarantee their physical integrity and their ability to act independently. This event wants to develop a regional roadmap with efficient practices to improve their security. Before moving forward, I want to remind you that this event is being broadcast on the CEJA platforms. You can rewatch it in case you missed something. I also want to highlight that the official photographs of the event you're going to find in the flyer most of you are holding that was delivered to you at the entrance by scanning the QR code. You will have access to all the materials. In any case that you need interpretation, you have the earphones available at the entrance. This event is organized by several institutions, amongst them the Ibero-American Association of Public Ministries, a non-profit that integrates all public ministries of Ibero-America. They want to strengthen the links and the reciprocity between the member states. Also, the Public Prosecutor Agency of Paraguay, established in 2004, which represents and defends the interests of its members, guaranteeing that the positions are assigned through a fair system and an efficient system, focusing on constant improvement of justice administration. Also, the Association of Judges in Paraguay, a body that only gathers judges. They fight for the dignity and the life of judges and the principles of independence and inalienability of judges. The Center of Justice of the Américas, CEJA, was created by the OAS resolution. Is an intergovernmental organization with technical and operational autonomy aiming to modernize justice systems in the Americas. The Judicial Studies Center was born in 2007 in Asunción. It's a non-profit civil society organization that wants to influence the quality of democracy, the improvement of the judicial system, the strengthening of the state of law, and human rights. Now we're going to get started with this panel, and for this I'm going to introduce Professor Dr. Emiliano Rolón Fernández, General Attorney of Paraguay and President of the Ibero-American Association of Public Ministry, who is going to talk about the safety of public prosecutors and mid- and long-term challenges. Also, Mr. Delio Vera Navarro, President of the Association of Judges of Paraguay. Also, Mr. Augusto Salas, President of the Public Prosecutor Association of Paraguay, who's going to discuss safety of public prosecutors in Paraguay, and Emilio Rodriguez, Chief of the Fiscal Security and Public Ministry Employees of Chile, who is going to discuss on public prosecutor security. This panel is going to be moderated by Natalie Ponce from Peru, Executive Director of the CEJA. Welcome.
Good morning to everyone. It's my pleasure to greet you on behalf of the technical team as Technical Director of the CEJA. I would like to thank you for your participation, our presenters, as well as the audience that is with us here in this auditorium, and those of you who are also following us through the virtual platform. As has been mentioned, it's very important for us to call upon you to talk and learn about this delicate subject that's crucial for democracy and the rule of law in our hemisphere, the security of those who administer justice, specifically judges and prosecutors in the region. This event was carried out in honor of Prosecutor Pecci in his hometown, Paraguay. As a homage, we would like to dialogue about the problems that we are confronting day to day, that prosecutors have to deal with, judges as well, in our countries. And as has been mentioned, to make the effort to build a roadmap that will allow us to prevent in a timely manner, in a sustainable and technical manner, the challenges that we confront to confront the perpetrations of criminal structures in our countries, in the institutions of justice, through corruption that exists around them. And regrettably, we have attacks, direct attacks on our operators, justice operators, and their families. That is why we gather. We are glad to have expert people in this panel, and specifically Dr. Emiliano Rolón, General Attorney of the Paraguay, who is also participating in this activity as the president of the Ibero-American Association of Public Ministries. And now I give the floor to Dr. Rolón. Good morning to everyone. Your Excellency, Doña María Carolina Allanes, Minister of the Supreme Court of Justice, Doña Mariana Victoria Rivas, General Director of Judicial Studies, Don Marco Aurelio González, General Attorney of the Republic, Don Emilio Rodriguez, from the Directorate of Security from Chile, Don Rafael Caballero, Vice Minister of Justice, Dr. Eldelio Navarro, friend and member of Association of Judges of Paraguay, Augusto Salas, President of the Association of Prosecutors of Paraguay, invited people and the press. I greet you all, and as well as the citizens of the Paraguay. The Ibero-American Association of Public Studies, IAM, Public Ministries, IAM, they have commended me the job of creating general overview of security and protection of judges and prosecutors, and also this affects not only in Paraguay but in other prosecutors' offices in America and Ibero-America, because this is a non-profit organization, as was pointed out. It is based in Ibero-America, but it also has bases in Europe. We have Spain, Portugal, Andorra, and we also have Italy and France participating today. Security of judges and prosecutors has been a concern for IAM practically since 2 months after the unfortunate event where our dear prosecutor lost his life. His anti-drug prosecutor, Marcelo Pecci, and in the meeting that was carried out in Cartagena, Colombia in 2002, we created an initiative to have a task force that would be in charge of creating a protocol, a security protocol, basically, and the task of coordinating was given to Paraguay with an internal working group and an international working group. The essential tasks were carried out in our country, mainly reaching conclusions in Ciudad del Este, and basically this coordination had the support of the United Nations, as well as financial support from the European Union. And the protocol had positive results, and amongst them we mention some aspects that are essential that we should consider. Steps to follow for prosecutors that have a risk profile and the need to establish interinstitutional contacts when they travel abroad. That was one of the first conclusions that we arrived at, and this was presented by the work group. Installing a liaison system between public ministries and components of the IAM to internalize issues in traveling abroad. The proposal designed by this work group was presented to the IAM, and it was also given to the United Nations as a matter, a basic matter, to install and establish these types of attitudes that involve judges and prosecutors when they travel to foreign locations. The intent of creating new practical guidelines that will allow us to develop better aptitudes. There was also a recommendation given by the United Nations. We commended the work itself was given to the same work group to continue developing it. Work group made up by different groups from different countries that make up the IAM. On specific points, we have essential tasks, and since this is a meeting I will just gloss over the general aspects. We talked about IAM and all its components, this work, the special committee and Paraguayan work group, working with cooperation of other groups from other countries. This was effective, and we have approval by the IAM, and we also had attention of the United Nations in the progress of best practices for this matter. So what I can say now in this meeting is that we are awaiting what will come from this conversation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rolón. Very important. These advances are very important, and the concerns that you have told us about on this matter. We will now listen to those who represent judges of Paraguay, so that they can comment on the current situation in the country and existing risks and the vision they have for this situation, to deal with this situation from the perspective of those who suffered its consequences. The security of judges in Paraguay, in charge of Delio Vera Navarro, president of the Judges Association of Paraguay. Dr. Vera, go ahead. Thank you very much. Good morning. Before anything, what a day for us judges. 4 years ago, we had asked a colleague, Diana Moreles. She was murdered in her own office. In memory of her, we have a remembrance of the Paraguayan judge. So I ask for a minute of silence in her memory.
Distinguished authorities, members of the CEJA and CEJ board, distinguished professors, my dear colleagues, special guests, Supreme Court Justice Carolina Llanes, the State Public Attorney, Vice Minister, members of the panel. To me, it is a I give great thanks to have been invited here to take part in this discussion panel on safe security of judges and public prosecutors facing organized crime in the Americas, and being able to share with you a topic that represents our sector and gives us great concern, which is security of judges. In that sense, we probably all agree that organized crime, including drug trafficking, corruption, and other transnational crimes, it is expanding frenetically in the whole region. The activities of criminal groups that accumulate power and financial resources to sustain and expand their crime actions is harder and harder to face in an isolated manner, and requires coordinated and joint efforts of security forces, institutions, injustice, and of the whole community, all citizens. Considering this scenario as a central element of their impunity and their expansion, is that we consider the need to state that to safeguard independence and impartiality of our judicial powers, we're forced to provide real protection, complete protection to justice operators, judicial operators, because a judge that is threatened, albeit personally or their families, they have the great difficulty of working with the tranquility and objectivity that the judicial system demands. As a representative of this sector, of this organization that gathers judges of the Republic, I would like to present the reality of judges who, in terms of developing the security roadmap, that is the objective of this event, generating constructive dialogue and finding solutions that have been agreed upon for this serious problem. Let us remember that in Paraguay we have faced very difficult times in terms of security. As I highlighted, the case of the Hernandarias judge Diana Mireles, who faced death in her own office. And this has affected all of us seriously. In terms of the importance of highlighting as well that the threats, death threats, towards the members of the judiciary community has not been isolated. They have been repeated in different parts of the country, in particular in the border towns such as Encarnación, Alto Paraná, Itapúa, Canindeyú, and we cannot exclude the capital city. It is also true that public situations such as intimidation, like firing firearms in the houses of judges who work in border areas, and other facts have motivated meetings with the Ministry of the Interior in order to express our great concern on this topic. It is also important to highlight that the Ministry of the Interior is working on the protection, or at least the prevention, in terms of security of judges who work in the border towns and all of the Republic. And it's important to highlight as an anecdote, I worked in a border town in the department of Amambay, in the city of Pedro Juan Caballero, and we were trying to find a way to obtain personal protection but on our own, from the tribunals to our house, to try to be all together, for which is not convenient for security, but we were trying to protect ourselves by sharing this hard work of managing justice in border towns where you have a constant threat on the decisions that one takes and due to the caseload in those judicial areas. It is also true that public facts such as intimidation, we also add the daily situation of many judges. For lack of space in the judicial power, they have to park their cars outside of the building, exposing themselves to unnecessary risks, particularly those who work in specialized areas such as organized crime, financial crime, and anti-corruption. Oftentimes, walking around the judicial courts, I see many judges walking 4 or 5 blocks away without any protection. And due to their caseload, maybe we have to pay attention to that and see how we can solve a basic situation, such as parking of judges within the building of the court. It is our duty as a society to protect those who protect us, to not work together. We have to work together, the state, civil society organizations, and all citizens, to create a safe environment to work on justice. Judges and public prosecutors are key parts in the preservation of the state of law and order of our societies. And we cannot allow organized crime to intimidate or silence those who seek for justice. The defense of the state of law and the guarantee that the law is going to be applied strictly and without fear must be our flag. I encourage you to make more efforts so that through discussion and dialogue, and in this discussion panel that allows us to exchange ideas, proposals, and a roadmap, as is being proposed, for safety in the work of public prosecutors and judges, we must find the necessary tools to guarantee that we can propose a protocol, security protocol for judges in Paraguay. The Judge Association of Paraguay, we're working on a project we want to put forward to the Supreme Court so that we can see the viability of having a security protocol for judges of the country. I would like to close expressing once again my thanks to the organizers who made this event possible, and all of you, dear colleagues, my best wishes and success in the honorable labor in the judiciary sector. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Vera. Persecution of crime has been one of the key sectors in the reform of criminal justice in more than 22 countries in the Americas at the beginning of this millennium. We have encouraged promoted and assessed the implementation of the new criminal codes in these countries, and we have supported what meant the creation of some public ministries in certain states such as Chile, and the strengthening of those structures that are clearly differentiated from the judicial functions and in those places where those institutions already existed to execute, implement the fight against insecurity and sanctioning of crimes. We need independent public prosecutors attached to the law with a lot of care in terms of corruption prevention and who are protected. That's why it is very important to listen Don Augusto Salas, president of the Paraguayan Association of Public Prosecutors, who is going to discuss the situation of the security of public prosecutors in Paraguay and the perspectives he has for the construction of this national roadmap on security. Thank you very much.
Good morning to everyone. General Prosecutor of State Roland Fernandez, Dr. Carolina Llanes, General Attorney Marco Aurelio Gonzalez, Mr. Vice Minister of Security, President of the Association of Judges, members of the panel. First of all, I would like to thank the organization of this event for having us here, including us in their organization and making us part of this conversation that's so important, because we, the prosecutors, having a vision from the Prosecutors Association, we always look at the security of our colleagues with concern. So I would like to thank you and greet my colleagues, my prosecutor colleagues and assistants that are here today, our vice president from the association that is here with us as well, Dr. Bobadilla. We are constantly concerned for the safety of our colleagues as they work. Not only prosecutor agents that work in sensitive offices such as organized crime, drug trafficking, corruption, but for all public prosecutors that carry out their work in the Republic, because we are all exposed to the phenomenon of crime. This is a constant for us, exposure to this and the activities that we carry out, because penal prosecution is in charge of the public, falls under public ministry from the beginning of the crime itself, from the knowledge of the fact that a crime occurred. This is a line that is drawn where action begins in our country under the new system that has been in place for 25 years now, through a new paradigm in carrying out public action. As you all know, in Paraguay, previously judges, penal judges or criminal judges directed this process, and the public ministry and the prosecutors were just accessories in carrying out public action. The system has changed since 1992 under the new national constitution, and definitely since 2000 with the new penal system in place, where the prosecutor now is the first to act in carrying out public action. So we now see the public prosecutor as the first link in the chain themselves have committed crimes, will always seek to evade the state's action. That's a principle, and the person will try to defend his liberty in any way possible. So the risk is ever present because the prosecutor has to issue the order to detain and imprison the individual along with the judicial system. So protection of public prosecutors, of the people who work with him and their families, is important. Since 2000 until today, we have been suffering a series of events of intimidation, aggression, verbal aggressions, and physical aggressions, and we have even had deaths of our colleagues, such as Marcelo Pecci, that happened in 2022. Even though it did not occur in our country, it happened abroad, but it's a consequence. It was a consequence of what he did in his actions against organized crime here. So we are called here today so that we as public justice operators, so we can look at this objectively and look at this with concern as security organizations of the state. We know that carrying out public action from the state's organizations is a guarantee of judicial security for the citizens as well, because the rule of law demands compliance with the law on behalf of all citizens. And if we do not have an effective compliance of the law, the degradation of democracy is not far behind. Democracy must be defended by everyone. And public prosecutors are important instruments in compliance to ensure compliance of the law. If we don't have the law, we don't have democracy. With these ideas in mind, I would like to initiate my intervention, pointing out that the need is imperious. We need the security of the prosecutor's families becomes more important nowadays. I say his family because the family is our psychological support. If organized crime, if crime itself attacks our families, then our security, our ability to act, and above all, our decisions will be affected. We know very well that organized crime damages those elements that are most sensitive to us, to force us to make certain decisions and make decisions for their convenience. So I'm not only asking for protection of public prosecutors, but their families as well. We all know that it's impossible the budget makes it impossible in our country to have security agents for every prosecutor. So then we should work, as we were saying, in this association, we must work intelligently. We have to work with the Secretary of Intelligence. We have initiated with conversations with the Secretary of Intelligence of the country. What does this mean? We're getting ahead of the facts. We want to know the reality. Some people told me no, but the police works with the prosecutors permanently, but that's only for the job they do, looking for elements, evidence, and working within the public ministry. Police work permanently with the prosecutors, but they don't accompany them in regard to their personal security. They are not up to the task of defending them against the threats that they have. We need a new roadmap to work on with those public prosecutors that are working in sensitive units that have physical dangers, face physical dangers. But all crime has its peculiarity and its risks, mainly for investigating prosecutors. So we have to expand our vision on activities of public prosecutors.
We, from the association, have been issuing press releases defending or claiming for defense, but specifically for several public prosecutors who were physically and verbally attacked during hearings. And I mention this because we started with verbal aggression. We have had facts where family members of those process, they have attacked public prosecutors. I would like to use the words of my friend Delio Vera. Public defendants park their cars 5 or 6 blocks away from the court here in Asunción, where we have public trials. After the public trial is over, and oftentimes, and I know this as I know very well, and prosecutors present here will know, in the elevator, when they're going to leave, they share the elevator with the family members of those who were accused or sentenced. See how much danger there is for the public prosecutor. We say, it's just words or just a push. I go back to the beginning, when institutions have to be protected, institutions have to be revalued, because that's what the democracy and the law demands. When an institution is degraded in terms of security, it is an institution that loses respect. And we have the risk in our country that the citizens will lose respect to our institution, because if we see that a public prosecutor is verbally attacked, pushed, maybe not serious problems, but the common citizen will say, that public prosecutor doesn't deserve to be respected. So the institution is being affected. The whole civil society, organized society, all the communities and the operators of justice, we have to have this concern to install security. For this reason, bringing a little bit of history, since 1992, with the death of the Judge Falcone in Italy, a whole revolution started in terms of establishing an outlook of security for justice operators. And more than 30 years later, we're still discussing this. We haven't installed definitely security in which the public prosecutor can work with tranquility and can feel safe enough within their institution, within their community, because I can be in my office working with security because I have 3 or 4 policemen guarding the building, but I have a family. I have the right for leisure. There is no security. So I go back to a point of need where intelligence has to get to work. If we don't achieve, it's going to be very difficult to achieve security, or at least the feeling of security for justice operators. Several dozens of guidelines, expressions, in attempts of protocol have been developed in this over 30 years. In the Cartagena Convention, after the death of Marcelo Pecci, we have established some guidelines. We have established work groups where a prosecutor is the person in charge of this work group to set up the security protocol. We're still moving forward. We're still working. It is important because also the Inter-American Court of Human Rights has manifested itself on the topic. From the Public Prosecutor Association, we have adhered to the Latin American Association Protocol, which in April has established in the Latin American Prosecutor Congress in San Jose de Costa Rica, where they have established the obligation for the guilds to see government bodies, us, to request security. And we're working on that. We have met with the Ministry of the Interior, the Supreme Court justices, the commander of the National Police, in order to showcase the problem that we're facing. But definitely, I think that the Latin American countries, we need political bodies to take the decision of providing more resources to public ministries to organize their own security. We have the example of Chile, who's on the table, who has a security body within the public ministry as employees of the public ministry. We do have a security office, but they belong to the national police, who are common commission, because we don't have the resource capability to organize our own security. We have worked in several aspects, and in this point I want to remind you what happened and what has awoken us are the murders that took place in Latin America in this brief time, starting for Alberto Nisman in Argentina, Luz Marina Delgado in Ecuador. This happened in 2022. Karen Almendras in Honduras, Federico Estrella in Ecuador, Edgar Escobar in Ecuador as well, Cesar Suarez also in Ecuador, but the main one that happened on May 10th in Cartagena in 2022, the death of our colleague and friend Marcelo Pecci, who definitely has established that organized crime, as you well know, has no borders and is spread out in all of Latin America, which incurred in the death from Paraguay. He traveled in his honeymoon with his new wife, and he was killed on the last day of his holidays, of his honeymoon. These people have followed him and killed him, and there is no doubt for us that is as a consequence of the work that he has been doing against organized crime. I repeat this because of the relevance and how sensitive was the work that he was doing. We have constant risks, not only those who work in sensitive jobs, but all units and all public prosecutors and their families. Finally, I want to repeat my thanks to the organization for having us here, for listening to us, and to having a discussion space where we have to obtain a result, to have coincidence points amongst all the organizations in order to present this to society, our concerns, and to capture their attention and the vision of the political organisms so that they can provide us with more resources and attention in defense not only of the institutionality of the Republic, but also of the democracy here in Paraguay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Augusto Salas. We are now talking about the central themes of this discussion in terms of the problems and challenges that we face, as well as shedding light on central elements or priorities to build a regional agenda on this topic. The security of prosecutors and judges requires a series of instruments. As we have seen, we are beginning important work within the IAM to build protocols, guides, and standards, as was mentioned by Dr. Salas. The relevant now in the following presentation is how do we make this operational? How do we carry out this task? How do we design and implement measures, concrete measures, to prevent and see to the security of prosecutors of Chile. For this, we have Emilio Rodriguez, chief of the prosecutor security unit within the public ministry of Chile. It was recently created in this country. Mr. Rodriguez has over 30 years of experience in subjects of security. He has worked in his country as well as in the UK. So we will now hear Mr. Rodriguez. Good morning. I would like to thank you for the invitation and greet everyone present here, authorities and the public, attendees, prosecutors and directors. And I think that before we begin, it's important to strengthen institutions. And who else but the public ministry itself can be left in charge of its own security? From the strategic point of view, we do need the police, but our General Attorney, Don Valencia, he wanted to get ahead of this problem of threats and to the security of prosecutors and public employees that carry out penal prosecution. He wanted to get ahead of this problem to create a security unit, a specialized security unit, internal, that would analyze the management of security and public policies regarding security and work together with prosecutors to see alerts, insecurities, and see this problem. In Chile, the threat rate is quite low. However, it is a subject that we wanted to, in some way, manage ahead of time to not have any future problems. So I think that this specialized unit carried out a diagnostic study. We have a preliminary diagnosis to see the real situation regarding security of the public ministry employees. The security unit was created in April the 17th, and with the aim to cover the security of prosecutors and public employees. And we want to see the reality and see the rate of threats. The threat itself is low, but the alerts are very high. The number of alerts are high. So we want to create a matrix to standardize security for prosecutors. Even though prosecutors do not receive any alerts or may not receive death threats directly, we established a risk matrix in regard to the work they carried out, and we standardized protection measures that must be in place for them. An example would be prosecutors that all prosecutors have bulletproof vests, ballistic helmets, panic buttons issued to them. We also covered this protection in 2 dimensions. The personal dimension that has a focus that's individual, personal to the family, and we have a professional dimension. And we also have a structural dimension because prosecutors have to reach their place of work. They need parking. They have access points to reach the courtrooms. So we addressed this infrastructure from the logistical point of view and technological point of view. We also carried out security reports and risk management for our prosecutors, and we alert the police. When we have a real alert, we request police agents for protection. It's important to work with the police as well, because we can create internal strategies, but the co-responsibility in terms of security is very important, and I want to make something very clear. We have determined this from the beginning. We must have many resources. We must have institutional concern for security. But if we do not have a personal interest, if we do not implement self-care resources for the prosecutors, all measures are null. For example, in social networks, if there's a social network threat towards a prosecutor, if someone publishes their entire life, on social media, they're giving information to organized crime so that they can attack them and affect their security. Not only attack them physically, but also attack their emotional security. And the public prosecutor cannot work in peace anymore. So what is security? Security is creating an environment where the prosecutor can carry out his job in peace without any risk. And we must understand something else, that we do not, that 100% of security does not exist. But we do have efforts by an institution to create an environment that is peaceful and adequate, with an adequate level of protection that allows the personnel to carry out their work. So I wanted to point out that our security unit has developed a diagnosis, obtain, and a work plan to get ahead in a preventive manner, create a security policy, and have security management in place, because we said that governments must deliver resources to institutions, and this must be effective. If we don't have resources, it's difficult to have security. But we must also understand that these resources also have to have security management attached. And in Chile's case, the general attorney created general guidelines such as national security policies. We don't want this to be done sector by sector. This is a problem. In Chile's case, it must be regional. And when we create a security unit specialized, we need country-level policy that gives instructions to all prosecutors' offices in the country. In July, we will publish a manual or best practices guidelines and protocols. And as I mentioned, in both dimensions, it will cover both dimensions. And in the third dimension, we have a infrastructure and a personal dimension and a personal dimension. And the third one would be our interaction with the judicial power. This is an agreement that was signed to carry out preventive actions when we have high complexity trials with organized crime. We have standards in place. This might be organized crime, drug trafficking, and trials of social connotation. In these areas, we have alerts. We work in coordination with the public ministry, the police, and the judicial power. I think it's important to strengthen the institutions, because when we strengthen institutions that are the first line against crime, we can guarantee citizens the rule of law. And as was said, if you don't respect prosecutors, if you don't respect a magistrate, what can we expect of the citizenry? So it's a personal concern of mine. We need to have the conviction and the responsibility to make security first. First, we need self-care, get out of our routines, because I'm risking my family when I when I carry out my work. Security of the prosecutors and their families are of utmost important, because when I am a prosecutor, I put my family at risk as well. And there's a cultural change that must occur in these organizations that's important to develop security. Thank you.
Thank you, Emilio. Now we're going to move on to the Q&A from the audience. We're going to do 2 rounds so that our excellent panelists may answer those concerns you have in the audience. You have, please, your question. If we can get support by providing the microphone. If you could please introduce yourself. Good morning to all the authorities. I'm Maria Celeste Jara Talavera, President of the Association of Female Magistrates of Paraguay. It is very interesting what has been established by our Chilean colleague, and I would love to know, or to have to know more specifically, when you talked about risk matrix, could you provide a little more detail about this topic? I find it extremely interesting and necessary. Thank you very much. Well, this risk matrix establishes certain points. For example, we assign a value if the prosecutor prosecutes organized crime, where they live, where the facilities are, if these facilities are in a risk area, if the prosecutor has had some kind of alert, if they go to work by walking in their private vehicle, public transportation, if their family has had a type of alert, where the children go to school, if their environment has had any vulnerability, if they have social media, if they have any kind of security, armored vehicles. We have to recognize that in Chile, armored vehicles were just having bulletproof vehicles. It's a new thing. So we have around 54 points that assign a value, and we establish mid, high, and low risk. But pay attention, we wanted to standardize that all prosecutors will have protection elements. For this reason, in 2022, January 2023, prosecutors have a panic button. So when they have a kind of alert, they press that panic button that goes to outsource company. They verify the alarm. They call the prosecutor. If they don't answer, they call the police, and we get an email on a report what happened. Most fortunately, happened because a mistake, but that allows us to have an idea and that they're using it. We have to focus that the issue of security is not a problem, it's a solution. And that's where it is, because most people, when you give them security of elements, they become uncomfortable. If you have a bodyguard, they become uncomfortable, but then they become that because of their public work, that affects their private life. In this risk matrix, there are certain points established about their private conduct. For example, we analyze if the prosecutor has leisure activities such as jogging, that also exposes them if they don't have protective agents. So we point towards creating some awareness and changing a little bit the paradigm that security starts there. Because the institution can provide all the means, but if they don't take into consideration that they're an authority or a prosecutor, all these elements are pointless because they're going to expose themselves too much. But this is a step-by-step program. It's a mid and long-term work. The unit has 2 months of creation, but we have collected the regional good practices, and we have made it our own through a specific manual that has 32 protocols so far. And also there are protocols being worked with the judicial branch that it's very important to link the core responsibility of the institutions, not only seeing what affects one institution. Security has to be a whole. It's a set of people who work for justice. Good morning. Thank you, Emilio. Gustavo Amarilla. Good morning, Your Excellencies. For my years of working in organized crime as a prosecutor and as a judge, and looking into what our Chilean colleague said, security means to work in a harmonious environment that guarantees the well development of the operator of justice. I would like us not to lose awareness of understanding that organized crime doesn't only affect justice operators from the physical point of view, and in the physical integrity to the harmonious work of justice operator in terms of threats from organized crime is not allowing them to work to that prosecutor and judge framework of the influence that organized crime has in different levels of power. with with a strong conviction, I can say that that is the more everyday way of attempting against the safe work of the justice operator, because organized crime is installed first to pressure justice operators in an underhanded way that is not noticeable publicly. There is no a direct attempt or car scratching or something like that. There is a threat, desperation of that justice operator in which they're going to be removed from their position, they're going to make their wife get fired, or that they're going to charge them for anything, because organized crime doesn't leave evidence that they're going to charge you for a case in particular. They're going to make up anything, or they're going to find anything else that you did in a different file to start pressuring you. So what I wanted to contribute was, let us not forget that organized crime has ways, not only with physical attempts, but in a very underhanded way, in a quiet way, that makes it impossible for that justice operator to take a decision. And with that, we lose independence and impartiality of that justice operator. That's what I wanted to contribute. Yes, about the same. I think it's very important to strengthen the institutions, because strengthening the institution, organized crime will be much harder for them to get in, and so that the prosecutor or judge feels strengthened in the case. It is important for the institution to provide all the tools for this to happen. When we talk about security, we think about physical security, but you're right. The issue is that intimidation through social media or fake news allow the prosecutor to feel intimidated facing a situation, because personal or family security can be vulnerable. As I said at the beginning, I think that strengthening institutions, delivering the tools and the resources, this will allow us to protect the work of the prosecutor. And when this exists, at least we raise an alert, because it's not that the risks to public servants are direct. We also are considering that. What's any situation that appears on social media in terms of security, a comment or a complaint, we also analyze this in this risk matrix, and we weigh in, because the prosecutor has to work in a safe environment. We cannot guarantee this 100%, but we can control and provide the tools for them to do their work. Threats are not always physical. They could even be invisible, or by a third party, or a slight comment, a person who is around their home or their workplace, and they feel intimidated. It's when a person is affected by a crime. Afterwards, they always feel vulnerable. So this generates emotion as a reaction. And from there is that we have to point to how we accompany the prosecutors, how we accompany the person, so that they can feel more at ease in their work. Thank you, Emilio. We have one more question. If you can introduce yourself, please. Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm Artemisa Marchuk, nowadays Assistant Prosecutor in the Gender Violence and Family Violence Unit, also against punishable acts against intellectual property and smuggling in Asunción. In the past, when I was working as an agent prosecutor in the financial crimes and anti-corruption, I have felt everything that Mr. Judge Amarilla has said, and other kinds, particularly when I was moving in my commute. I would like to, if you could provide us other ways in order to apply the core responsibility and self-care besides what you have mentioned, more like in addition to not exposing in social media. And on my personal experience, I would like to show that being active in social media has had an element of protection as well. I could go deeper later, or where you go, where you come, of course, you have to restrict that. But in my experience, in my professional experience, to be active in social media has meant, in my case, protection, one way of finding protection. So, sir, I ask you if you could explain a little more how to implement this self-care and the core responsibility that these public prosecutors, how we can help in this issue.
Well, there are two subjects there. First, social media. I think that when we approach this institutionally, when we're carrying complex cases that lead to conviction, I think that there are two aspects. One, that leads to creation of fake news, and he's recognized. So you're right. When the prosecutor reaches a conviction or is effective, the institution is also involved because behind the prosecutor we have the public ministry. So I will talk most about Chile's reality. So I don't have an answer for everything because we've only been with this for 2.5 months and we're looking at this case by case. But as an example, in terms of personal conduct, I think that we created a guide for the prosecutor. There are more suggestions, they're not mandatory, regarding data protection, social media, phone use, using password-protected phones, informing their family members of the situation. I know when you have children, it's very difficult for the children to keep children from publishing pictures of their family and their environment and their father. But social media, I think that social media use should be closed for the family only. They have to change their routines because many times people fall into routines in their commute. In the morning, they go to the office, they come back home at 9, they always take the same roads. We suggest prosecutors to have 1 or 2 or 3 alternate routes. Change their commute, change their departure time, inform your family members of this, because perhaps we might think that we are being overly cautious, but when we fall into a routine, we create risk and danger, and threats and alerts come. So I would like to go to the prior point. I know there are many prosecutors that, or justice workers that may have had some type of threat. However, when you expose yourself in social media, you create an alert level, for better or worse. And that, I have to consider that alert level, and even though that strengthens my security, from the security point of view, I have to see how I can follow up on this. How many people, for example, if you publish an article, a news article, how many people see that? Because that will also create a point of consideration. The prosecutor is showing up too much in social media, that might create a security alert. What can I do to provide him with a secure environment? I can check his home security, check his car security. I can recommend routes for his commute. I can change his routine a bit. If he has a real threat, I can restrict his social media, perhaps. We're making suggestions. If you have an actual threat, restrict your social media for 30 days, or perhaps work from your home if possible for a determined period of time until the risk level diminishes. I can also issue him a bodyguard, and maybe it's not 24 hours a day, but he could accompany him in his commute from his home to his office, perhaps. That type of routine change. I'm not sure of what the what the guideline says exactly, but it's basically about changing routine and make their family co-responsible for security. And this is a team effort because we have secretaries, we have drivers. They can also create risk behaviors. Many times, the driver might publish, "Oh, I'm riding with the prosecutor today," and as social media, and that also creates issues. Thank you. Do we have more questions from the audience? Yes, Jorge Figueredo. One moment, please. Doctor, go ahead. I'm Jorge Figueredo, former prosecutor from Paraguay. My question goes to anyone sitting at the table. We have knowledge. As a former member of the prosecutor's office, we know that there are successful security methods in place across the world. One of them is the Falcone method from Italy that has been applied in many countries of the world, and I think that is a very successful method and can be replicated in Latin America, because I'm seeing not only in Paraguay but in all of our Latin American countries, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, that we still have not become aware that security is part of the professional conduct of just judicial operators. What does that mean? If we're not aware that this must be a state policy, security must be a state policy, that means that we do not have, or not professional enough as judicial operators. These days, security is not unrelated to the training of a judicial member. So I propose to the organizers of this event that we can share experiences and knowledge with those that are on the forefront in the fight against organized crime, those that are in the forefront of the security model. One of them is the Italian model. We have the American model as well. We have references from across the world that we can apply here in Paraguay. And I propose that through the public ministry, we organize an event, an international event, with the participation of representatives of the entire world, similar to this event, where we can invite the ministries of the interior, because security must be a state policy. We have currently in Italy, for example, a system of security where prosecutors that fight against the mafia have a security system that's similar to the heads of state. In other words, even though they have different levels of threats and security, for prosecutors, we must keep in mind that if we truly know the enemy, a prosecutor that is part of an organized crime task force, as part of an anti-corruption unit, such as Marcelo Pecci, they must have the same security provided to heads of state. Because if a prosecutor that's carrying out similar work similar to Marcelo Pecci's, and he has no security, if we don't give him security equal to that given to a head of state, that means that we don't understand the threat of the mafia. I think that today we're talking about mafias. We're not just talking about organized crime. Mafias condition our democracy. They are conditioning our freedoms. They are conditioning the economic system here in Paraguay. They are conditioning our rule of law. So it's a little bit more elevated than organized crime. The challenge that we have today is more elevated than organized crime alone. I insist that all operators here, that we aim higher, that we aim towards the mafias, not only criminal organizations. Even though all mafia is an organized crime organization, not all organized crime organizations carry out mafia-related activities. And I thank you for this event. It's very enriching, and I congratulate the organizers of this event. I hope we have more initiatives such as this, and that we invite the President of the Republic, then we invite the ministries, the ministers, and the Minister of the Interior as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, precisely. I completely agree with your opinion of the former prosecutor. That's the reality. We have to kickstart this, and I think that this discussion panel, this cooperation and dialogue will allow us to create the strategies, the protocols with the Chilean experience that is providing us certain key points to follow. The public ministry has a protocol that is structured. I think there is an agreement with the Supreme Court of Justice in moving forward this security protocol as institution in the Supreme Court. Judges are also working to build the protection against insecurity or threats, not only from organized crime, as the mafia has advanced, and in our country we have the guerrilla. Here we have judges who were overseeing those trials and have received death threats, not only verbal death threats, but also written. The picture of the judges in the trees, in the walls, and this protection becomes an alert, but after a while it is forgotten, and those judges are unprotected from internal security even. Sometimes it's the lack of staff, there aren't enough police, or problem sometimes is budget. We have to work because a protocol without budget, we need the state to become involved in this concern, because the lack of security is a great concern, not only for the judges, but all prosecutors, and is the responsibility of the state. I am 100% in agreement with what Dr. Amarilla said. Everybody who has had experience in the Ministry of Interior, we know about the routine of the judges, not only of them, but also of their family members, independently of their performances. In cases we know that lack of security affects the ease of justice operator to perform their duties. The risks are there, and sometimes we try to find our own protection or our own security detail. We're starting a discussion, and I want to thank the organizers as well, to exchange ideas and to find collaboration to project, to have a balance point for the protection of all justice operators, for them to perform their duties in seeking the rule of law and independence, which is key. Thank you. Now let's hear Dr. Rolón. The issue of security of judges and prosecutors is evidently new in our concerns. Normally, human beings start to interact or pay attention to details as they come up, as things occur. The experience of our friends in Chile shows us that they are also in the experimental phase. They say that is working they have been working for 2 months and a half. I celebrate that. My dear friend Ángel Valencia is a very proactive mind, and I want to highlight 2 key aspects as a starting point. One, the need to have internal security components that can design a plan for these to tend towards efficacy, and as another aspect is a personal care. The subjective aspect of watching our routine, our participation on social media and other aspects, which I believe are very important. Mainly, each one of us are responsible of our own security. How we protect first ourselves, avoiding routine, changing itineraries in our commute, etc. And another aspect is a special care in everything regarding our family environment. One of the first issues that was proposed to us when we took office in 1995, the crime judges was, just to show an example, was to never have family pictures in our offices and to see how we could restrict people to have restricted access to those key informations. The movements, as the Chilean presenter said, even our leisure activities, to see the way to protect ourselves. I don't think there is one security system in the world that gives us full protection if we don't consider these key aspects in care. As sharing with, I differ with Artemisa Marchuk. She said that social protection comes from social media. I oppose that. I had to stop sharing in social media because it becomes a mess. In other times, as a teacher, I was using it as a professor to share ideas, reflections, concerns, etc. But nowadays, even I cannot take advantage even of that. The restriction we give ourselves, the recommendation that we give to our families, routines that we have to correct, I think are starting points. Also, from us has to come the commitment and the obligation to implement those good practices. The work group, as a recommendation of the United Nations, continues with that same proposal. Paraguay, from now on, with all the chiefs of prosecuting offices in Iberoamerica are all members of this scheme. An institutional project will be analyzed by the board in the United Nations. Thank you, Dr. Rolón. We have space for more questions. In the back, please. 3 more questions. Astrid Bosch from GIZ. Thank you for this panel. I think it's very timely, and the confirmation of the panel is excellent. Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Rodriguez, which is need to learn. Mr. Rodriguez, you said that Chile decided to generate this unit that has as an objective to develop security protection and policies of security and protection for judiciary employees. And you hit the mark there. The decision to generate is a political decision. It is a decision that affects resources, capabilities of the state. And as the Attorney General in Paraguay is one of our weaknesses or the issues. How are we going to pay for that protection? So what I'm interested to understand in Chile is if you didn't have the risks or the cases that have happened in other countries, how did you reach that political decision? What can we learn from the process of developing political goodwill to make a decision that has a budgetary relevance to protect our judiciary employees before a problem that affects the whole political system in all countries? Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. It covers a lot, but our Attorney General wanted to preventively get ahead of the insecurity problem. And also in Chile, we have a national security policy, and as an autonomous body, and they dictated an institutional security policy, and this policy watches over the security of the persons and the infrastructure and the patrimony of the public ministry. Fortunately, these policies have had good foundation and also goodwill from the government to assign the necessary resources to face organized crime. From the point of view of prosecutor safety, prosecution person, and to do an appropriate management of the security expenses, to technically observe, and so that is not
Otherwise, it is left to the regional prosecutor or to the regional authorities to see what danger and risk exists. Here we have general guidelines, and the prosecutors act according to policies created by the public ministry. So you were asking me, we do have communication with the police, and they, through their intelligence department, they send me a report, and through this we want to reach, in the short term, we want to have our own, create our own intelligence reports, because the prosecutor's office, through the witness system, we manage a lot of information. So we want to send this to information analysis and create risk profiles that will allow me to assign resources or act preventively to protect the prosecutor without the need to ask the police, request police for custody protection. So we just need follow-up by the security department for these matters. Now we have a magistrate. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for the initiative, for bringing all these distinguished participants in this panel. It's extraordinary. And it was more than a question. I would like to comment that of what we're doing in the justice system in regard to everything related to preparing judges and the organization to confront the threat and risk of complex criminality. We have a work table, an interinstitutional work table, working with the prosecutor's office, with the executive power, the Supreme Court. We have drafted a plan to integrate criminal policies where we will determine, first of all, the situation, the diagnosis of the current situation, who are the main actors involved in administrating this reality, the three powers of the state involved. This is a very broad plan, and I just wanted to point out that we are considering an entire chapter related to security of the human resources, the operators of the system that act against complex criminality and organized crime. So we understand that we are going down this path. We need a integrated criminal policy. The three branches of the state are involved in this, as well as civil society, and we must all be committed and be held responsible for the plan, so that the plan itself can lead to effective results. We understand that from this table, it's not enough to have an armed guard or an armored car or some recommendations basic security recommendations to follow. We understand that we must also have or incorporate self-care and everything you have talked about in relation to management of social media and everything that involves tasks of the justice system. We understand that we cannot disappear completely from social media in the 21st century. We need to interact. We need a deep knowledge of how this works and in which way it can affect the physical integrity of magistrates, prosecutors, and judges, how it can affect the image of this justice system itself when we fight against crime. We also know that organized crime and complex criminality have logistical, economical, financial, media power, and they can use all their paraphernalia to undermine the image of the prosecutor or the judge or the justice system itself. And we also understand that we must work on communication strategies to accompany the work carried out by judges and prosecutors and the justice system when fighting these types of criminal crimes. I thank you once again because I have learned a lot. I stayed until the end to learn from my foreign colleagues, and we will surely be approaching you to adjust our plan and learn from your achievements and add them to what we are doing. Thank you very much, and I congratulate you for your work. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who has participated with comments and questions. You have contributed to this collective construction for the roadmap to strengthen the security of our justice operators. We have a few minutes for closing words from each of our panelists, and we would like to invite you to do so in the same order in which you participate in the conversation. Please address us for maximum 3 minutes, please. Your final words on the elements, priority elements that should make up this roadmap for the region. Doctor, go ahead, please.
I celebrate this meeting as the substitute president of IAM. As I presented before, our concern of each attorney general in America is the issue of security, development, etc., which are key topics proposed by the Organization of American States. In the successive interventions and evolutions of everything that is the work group, show us that those initial steps were given. Angel Valencia went beyond. He implemented it, which I think is important, with the clarification of the presentation that the budget helps them. They get support from the budget. Other public ministries don't have that facility. We have to struggle a lot to obtain, for our harder missions, a little bit more of budget, something more acceptable. Beyond that, attorney generals in Ibero-America have the strong purpose, and we establish this in every general meeting, to support these work groups. And there are other proposals that are created successively as we evolve, not only in this security topic, which is very important, but also in other aspects that require international cooperation. The Marcelo Pecci case, for us, it's emblematic, it's traumatic as an institution, and it's even very important for us to have an evolution. We have the same feeling than the public opinion of the population. We all want to know. The work team that we installed the next day when the law allowed us, from October 9th last year, there are people who are committed with the case, with the public ministry, and with the country, led by an adjunct prosecutor and a teamwork that is of people with experience and with credibility. So please do not hesitate. Do not doubt that institutionally we will do what is required. My commitment as Attorney General from the get-go was with the people, according to my constitutional mandate. The public interventions, I said that I have no political commitment, and I don't have expectations in the future. When at the end of my mandate, I'm going to go home. So my main vocation is for this to happen, to solidify all the aspects regarding the criminal investigation. I also ask for understanding. This is the smallest number of prosecutors that we had for the last 10 years, no more than 320 prosecutors for the whole country. Imagine the dimension of the work. I thank the prosecutors who are committed with the cause, who make all the public efforts to accept a harder commitment. So it is good to contextualize what we can and what we have. It's not so easy to dimension that aspect. Thank you very much. Dr. Vera, 2 minutes for your final reflection. Thank you very much. Truly, for the Association of Judges, this, in spite of the concern, we have occupied ourselves with the issues of security, implementing seminars, discussion panels. We have talked with the Ministry of the Interior, with the Minister, and several presenting formal claims and all the recommendations we have given to all judges. And we have the commitment of continuing working. We're working with a security protocol that we're going to put up to consideration for all judges. And I think that this panel and the participation of everybody has enriched with regards to this concern of unsafety, security issues with which we perform our duties, and which affects the independence and the easiness of all the justice operators. My conclusion is that is an item for the national agenda and also for the regional agenda and also of the Organization of the American States, our safety, which is key. Because if we don't prioritize the protection of those who protect us, truly, I don't know, we're not going to have anybody left. So it is a responsibility of society to protect those who protect us. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Salas. We can hear you. Thank you very much. To conclude, my thanks to the organization and all the participants. I think that we are going to leave here enriched in a lot of knowledge and above all experiences of each and everyone here. But as an association, we understand that we are on the right pathway in terms of gathering information, gathering experiences, and above all, to occupy ourselves with such a sensitive issue, such as the security of all justice agents. I don't want to discriminate against colleagues that work only in organized crime, but also all of those agents who work in the Republic, in the farthest corners of the country. They deserve the protection, the support, and above all, the personal and family security. Something important, we have understood here that emotional security is key for the decisions made by the officer who performs such a noble duty, such as prosecutor or judge. Security not only in physical terms, but also emotional, psychological, and we can all work together to achieve results that are beneficious for everybody. Minister presented the reality that we have installed work groups between the courts, the executive branch, and other institutions. And us, as an association, would like to be part of that work group. As an association, we know, we feel, we know the hardships that our colleagues and our employees and our families go through. The request and the proposal is there. We want to be part of this, of the solution, of something that affects all of us, not only justice operators, but also the population. Judicial security depends on the work that we can offer our population, our foreign visitors. The state of law has to be protected, and there is no democracy without the rule of law. So we're strong defenders of the rule of law and democracy. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. And the closing words of Emilio Rodriguez. I want to thank everybody for their invitation. I think it's very important when we become aware that we have an issue, that we have an event, as we could say, in terms of security. But the co-responsibility, the shared responsibility is key to create the appropriate environment for all of us to perform our duties. We have a slogan in our security unit to make it massive, that is visualize to educate. Because if I don't show my prosecutors what the alert levels are because of their work, they're not going to realize maybe that there is a risk in what they're doing in their private life or in their professional life. And that's why, as a security unit, want to generate conduct or a behavior of responsibility in personal, professional, and family behaviors to develop the best possible scenario and to create this instance where we're talking about security and shared responsibility as actors of the judiciary process is key, because the public ministry cannot work alone. The judiciary cannot act alone. The government cannot act alone. It's a shared problem. Once we understand that security is a shared problem, we can have best results. We can use the public funds better, and we can provide a better quality of life to the Ministry of the Public Ministry, the judiciary, and the whole population, which is what the population expects, the rule of law. That's why it's key to strengthen institutions so that the population can realize that we are empowered against organized crime. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. This panel has achieved its targets to generate a critical outlook on the problematic issue in the region, and also the elements that have to constitute the roadmap. We have taken notes from the Study Center of Justice in the Americas and now we're going to close with the final words of Maria Victoria Rivas. Please, Maria Victoria. Before all,
I'd like to thank the Attorney General for his generosity, and thank everyone present here. And we remain with the concern. We are somehow alleviated in this regard, seeing that we have plans, such as Dr. Rolon mentioned. And we in the CEJA will accompany this process and try to incorporate the other best practices from other countries and implemented here. Cecilia Barrios is with us. She will give some closing words as a member of the council, and I would like to thank everyone for being here. Thank you very much. I would like you to applaud our panelists. And before you leave the table, and I would like you to remain for a group picture, please. So to close this event, I will call upon Dr. Cecilia Barrios from Guatemala, member of the Board of Directors of the Center of Judicial Studies of the Americas, CEJA. Good morning to everyone. On behalf of the Center for Judicial Studies of America, I would like to thank the authorities for being here with us today, and also thank our panelists for their valuable interventions for this event, and everyone who is here with us today in this important discussion. Have a nice day. With this, we reach the end of this regional discussion on security for judges and prosecutors confronting organized crime in the Americas. Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning.